welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we're taking a look at the CJRB Bowie Pyrite. This is the third Pyrite I've reviewed, and it won't be the last. But each Pyrite is different enough that I think they warrant their own individual reviews. So that's what we're going to be doing here with this newest blade shape. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. We're gonna nerd out about rocks. So yes, pyrite is a mineral, specifically iron disulfide, FeS2. It's commonly called fool's gold because, well, to the uninitiated, it kind of resembles gold, right? Look at that, isn't that pretty? But it's not. In fact, it's a very common waste mineral at a great many mining localities, and that is where I find most of my pyrite is in the talus piles and the tailings of these different mines. It can form in these cubes. It can have this kind of blocky habit. It can form as kind of almost looks like like kind of sand over a rock. We've got a couple examples here. On this little piece of limestone matrix, you can see we've got some really nice little pyrite hexagonal prisms. I can't even speak. Those are really, really cool. I like those quite a bit. This little piece here has some tiny pyrite cubes, which are very, very nice. These other two pieces are kind of interesting. So here we see that the pyrite is kind of sitting on here almost like a vein. Look at that there. That's pretty. This is pyrite and galena. And galena is a lead sulfide. So pyrite is an iron sulfide mineral. Galena is a lead sulfide mineral. And so here we have, focus up camera. This is a chunk of galena with pyrite inside it. So I broke open this galena square, this galena cube, and you can see we've got pyrite in there. And galena is a wonderful, wonderful little thing. Look, I'm getting it all on my fingers. Gotta make sure to lick my fingers clean after this because that yummy, lead sulfide is delicious and good for me. That, of course, is satire when handling galena or other lead minerals, or actually sulfide minerals in general. Don't lick your fingers. It's not good for you. That stuff's gross. All right, but let's go ahead and continue with this review now that we've got the rock nerdery out of the way. Start off with our blade length measurement. Sharpened edge here coming in just a little under 3 inches, a little bit over 3 or 2 3/4, but we are under 3 inches for our sharpened edge. Our entire blade length, about 3, it's just a little bit over 3 inches. So very, very similar in size to other pyrites, as you might expect. Let's go ahead and get our size comparisons out. Here is our Rat 2, and here's our Rat 1. I almost call this a Rat 1, probably because I always bring this one out first. If I brought the Rat 1 out first, I'd probably call it the Rat 1 more and not be confused. But there we go. More similar in size to the 2. Now our USA made comparisons. There's the Spyderco PM2, and here's the Benchmade Bug Out. Nice, nice, nice. Let's go ahead and grab our Civivis next. There's our Elementum, or in this case, the Elementum 2. And here's the Praxis. Sweet. And let's finish up this size comparison segment by bringing out a parade of pyrites. So here it is compared against the standard drop point pyrite. Here it is against the Warney pyrite. So yeah, they're all the same size. Not sure if that's shocking to you or not. Let's go ahead and bring out the big pyrite, the large pyrite, and the pyrite light. Oh, can't wait to review this one, guys. Keep an eye out for this review. It's going to be great. There we go. And just two more. We're going to get out of here real quick. CJRB Rhea, because I haven't brought that knife out in a while. And the CJRB Feldspar. So there we go. Very similar in overall length to the Rhea, actually. Alrighty, what are we looking at for our materials? On this particular version, we have AR RPM 9 on this blade, steel button lock, steel liners and bolsters with ebony wood inlays and a steel pocket clip. Let's go ahead and go cut some stuff. Let's talk about the CJRB Pyrite. Again, this is going to be my third Pyrite review on the channel, and of course, we're talking about the Bowie Pyrite today. This was a very easy knife to review because honestly, since I've already reviewed the Pyrite twice, really I was just reviewing this blade more than anything else because there's going to be a lot of things that are very, very similar. In fact, identical to the other Pyrites I reviewed, but there are some differences and stuff between this one and previous ones I've reviewed, so we will be getting into all of that. Just got back from work a little bit ago. I'm going to share a little bit of a funny story. So I'm at work at the museum, and actually before visitor hours started, I was there this morning doing the custodial work. The phone rings, I answer it, and it's a woman on the other end. Basically, she tells me that she found this bone in Texas, and she thought it was a dinosaur bone, and she wanted to take it somewhere to get it identified. She asked if I could do that, and I said, yeah, absolutely. You know, if you bring it to me, I can tell you whether or not it's a fossil. I may even be able to tell you what kind of animal it came from. And she says, oh, okay, good. You know, yeah, I found it, and one of my friends said maybe it's a dinosaur bone, but to be honest with you, I was kind of thinking it was an Anunnaki bone. Because, like, it kind of looks human, but not exactly human. And so I'm really thinking it's Anunnaki. And I get a little snarky sometimes, I guess. But I immediately just said, well, I can tell you right now without even saying it that it's not Anunnaki. And there's kind of a little bit of quiet on the other end. She says, well, how would you know? I said, because I don't think anyone's ever found an Anunnaki bone. She said, okay, well, you know, I'll see you later. I said, okay. She never showed up. So maybe I scared her away. Maybe she'll come in tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, if you're going to be taking what you think is a fossil bone to a geologist, paleontologist, someone at a museum for them to look at, even if you think it's Bigfoot, don't say that. Don't say that. Just wait until you hear what they have to say. Identifying dinosaur bones is one of my favorite things to do, or just any fossilized bones in general. I had a guy come into the museum a while back, and he had all these different bones, and he kind of dumped them on my desk. He started off with like small bones, and then he went to his truck and brought back some bigger bones. He said, look at these dinosaur bones I've been finding. And I said, well, they are fossils. You're correct. They are fossils. They're not dinosaur bones. In fact, the bones that were on my desk were pieces of bison, extinct bison, an extinct camel relative called camelops that used to live in the area, some tapir bones, and yeah, other associated mammal elements like that. And I said, yeah, you know, these are younger than dinosaurs. But also, don't answer this. I don't want to know. But when you're picking these up, you need to make sure that you're on private land with permission, because you're not allowed to pick this stuff up on BLM land in New Mexico. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if he was just collecting that stuff illegally, but he was telling me he had just rooms and rooms full of bones that he'd found. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the CJRB Pyrite. Sorry about the distraction, but CJRB Pyrite. Start off with our action. So you got the thumb studs, Again, the Pyrite has great thumb studs, just like all other versions of the Pyrite. We've got great thumb studs. We have this nice little cutout here to get to the thumb studs. It's a button lock, just like the other Pyrites. Feels very, very good. The button tension feels good, just like other Pyrites. This has multiple deployment methods, which I think this is the first Pyrite to have multiple deployment methods, because you do have this fuller. Now, the fuller is a little bit smooth, but I don't think it's hard to use. I can use it with no trouble pretty easily. I will say this particular Pyrite has a little bit of a light action. This one has the lightest detent of any of the Pyrites that I've ever owned or handled, but that's probably due to individual variation, because every single other Pyrite I've handled has felt great. Now, this one does not feel bad. This actually feels pretty good. It's not bad at all. This is a 100% acceptable button lock action. It's just a little bit less than some of the other Pyrites that I've handled. So it's only, like, if I didn't have anything else to compare it to, I'd say this action was fantastic. But because I've handled other Pyrites and can compare it directly to them in my head, it feels a little bit less than. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the ergonomics. Same great ergonomics as on the standard Pyrite, right? It's a smaller knife, but you can get a full-size grip on here, choke up into that choil. The jimping up here is fine. I wish it went a little bit further, but it's fine. The pod clip doesn't bother me too bad. Very nice, simple, ergonomic lines. Yeah, it works out just fine. Carry. So we have the standard CJRB clip, which is a fine clip. This particular version does not have a reversible clip, but the scale is tapped for a reversible clip. So basically all you would have to do if you wanted to make this reversible is drill a single hole through this scale. Oh, I think I said the scale is tapped. It's the liner. The liner has holes on the inside for that reversible clip. We'll show that at the tabletop when we're, up close and personal. But yeah, they did not include it from the factory, which is kind of a loss. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the carry. Now, this particular Pyrite, this has steel with the ebony wood. This is the heaviest Pyrite I have, but it's still, not going to be like prohibitively heavy to carry. Tucks against the backside of your pocket really, really nicely. Very slim carry profile. Yeah, it's not going to be a difficult knife to carry unless you really, really, really care about weight. All right, let's go ahead and cut some stuff. We have this Bowie AR RPM 9 blade, a really pretty blade, I may add. Whoops. Flat grind. Let's try not to get in the choil. There we go. It cuts just fine. Those first couple of rough cuts were because I was getting caught in the choil, so don't count those. And sorry about that. Camera stopped recording, but let's go ahead and try and do some utility cuts with this very aggressive Bowie blade. The utility cuts are not going to be the greatest. You have to get up pretty high to access that tip. And that doesn't work at all. So yeah, this is not going to be a great utility cutter, but you probably already took that into consideration because it is a Bowie blade. There we go through the rope. Let's go ahead and crunch down on this thing. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that actually did really nicely. This thing is not super thick behind the edge. It's also not super thin, but we do have a flat grind, which is a very strong grind. We got a lot of strong belly out here, so if you're going to be crunching down on things like that, you're going to get a lot of power out in this area here, and that is exactly what we saw. Okay, let's go ahead and take on the pool noodle, see what we come up with here. 1, 2, 3. Woo! All right. Yeah. We went wafer thin on those. Look at that. Last one, maybe tried to get a little too ambitious. We kind of chewed through that last little bit right there. That might have been me getting caught in the choil, or might have been that I was going too thin. But regardless, look how thin we were able to get that Very, very nice. Felt fantastic going through the pool noodle. So overall, good blade shape or good grind on this guy. It's going to function just fine for your EDC. There's a little look at him. Let's go ahead and get back to the table. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into what I'm liking and not liking about this knife. Number one, I love this blade shape. This is a good looking knife, right? Look at that. This thing is sexy as hell. I think aesthetically, this is probably my favorite Pyrite. I've got a huge soft spot for Bowies. They're my favorite blade shape. But I think this one was executed really, really well. I love this bolstered look with the wood scales. It gives me big time Old West vibes. I'm so glad they decided to offer these versions. This does kind of look like it'd be a nice companion piece to an Old West revolver, or maybe an old Henry rifle, right? But I think it looks great. I love the fuller. This thing's just a good looking knife. It's really, really cool. And at the end of the day, this knife had to have something going for it to make it stand out from its other Pyrite brothers and sisters, and it definitely does. It's very unique, very cool, and that cool factor sets it apart. The action on this guy is good. We'll talk about it more a little bit later, but you got these thumb studs. The thumb studs on the Pyrite are great, very, very comfortable. You have these little scallops here that make access to thumb studs very easy, but you also have a fuller here, which is new for the Pyrite. It works really, really nicely. I don't really have too much complaints. It is a little bit smooth, but I'm not going to complain about that because, as you can see here, I'm having no trouble flicking the blade, so it works, right? Would I prefer it to be a little bit sharper? Maybe, but I can't complain that much if it works so well. So we're not going to complain. The ergonomics on this thing are very good. A lot of this is just going to be rollover from previous Pyrite reviews, so check those out for more info, but the ergos on this are great, just like all Pyrites. The Pyrite just has good ergonomics. The blade itself does cut pretty nicely. You know, we do come down to a fairly thin edge. I don't think this is the best performing Pyrite, but the blade does cut. It's a flat grind, not a full flat grind, but you know, we got a little saber height flat grind. The pocket clip works really, really well in and out of the pocket. Yeah, basically all the biggest hits of the Pyrite are accounted for and present here. The fit and finish is really good. Out of the box, it was functioning just fine, and it looks fantastic. I feel like I kind of don't want to just rehash everything I've already said about the Pyrite, and so I just kind of want to focus this more on the things that make it unique. So let's talk a little bit more about this blade. Not only does this blade look good, it looks damn good. So this fuller here was a great choice. I love the swedge up here, and excuse the fingerprints and use smudges, but very nice satin finish on here. Love the way that the swedge and the fuller play with the light. Just a very, very cool looking knife blade. Yeah, I like it a whole lot. Okay, I guess let's go on to negatives already. My biggest negative with this knife is that the clip is not reversible. Now, there are versions of the CJRB Bowie Pyrite that do have a reversible clip, but these ones that have the wood inlays, the clip is not reversible. However, if we look inside there, let's get this blade out of the way. Let's see, maybe it'd be better to see it from this side. Maybe this side is best. If you can see down in there, the liner is actually drilled for a reversible clip. There's an extra hole there. So if you want to modify this, all you have to do is put one more hole on the scale. But it would have been kind of nice if they had done that from the factory, right? They shouldn't expect us to make that modification ourselves, I wouldn't think. But, you know, potato, potato, I guess. Next complaint, this particular version, and this is just unique to this version here, but this one had the worst action of the Pyrites I felt so far. But again, that's probably down to individual variability. And the action's not bad by any means. The action is not bad. It's just a little bit of a mushier detent than some other Pyrites that I felt. If you saw my unboxing video, you'll know that it took me a little bit to get used to it. But now I'm completely used to it, and it's functioning just fine. But it was worth mentioning. Hey guys, just realized I forgot to say something. What's the point of having notes if you're not going to read them, right? For those of you that care, this is also the heaviest pyrite that I have. So we do have steel bolsters and liners. And the liners are milled out, but the steel is pretty heavy. The wood is a little bit heavy. So this is heavier than, for example, here's my all steel pyrite. It's also heavier than this one. I know these two look very similar, but this has titanium bolsters and micarta scales. So that saves a lot of weight. And obviously it's much heavier than the Pyrite Light and G10 Pyrite. It's actually probably kind of close to the weight of the big guy. But yeah, there we go. And the last thing I'm going to say in terms of negatives is this is probably the least utilitarian Pyrite blade. The drop point is an excellent all-arounder. The Wharncliffe is a very, very good blade shape. This one is leaning very heavily into the aesthetics, right? Sorry about that. This knife had one goal, and it was to look good. And you know what? It succeeded. It does that. It really, really does. But when it comes to actual use, this knife is not the greatest. So one thing, the grind is quite a bit lower than on the drop point. So they're both flat grinds. But you can see here that the drop point goes quite a bit higher than the clip point does. And we also don't have great access to that tip, because this is a Bowie blade. You have to get way, way up there. So while it's not thick behind the edge, it's definitely a little bit less slicey than the drop point or the Warney, and the tip is not very accessible either. Still, for just day-to-day EDC, just basic tasks, opening packages, cutting a sandwich, things like that, it's going to be just fine. It's going to be just fine. All right, so let's go ahead and move into my final conclusion. So I know this review felt like a little bit rushed, and it kind of feels like I didn't say a whole lot in the positives section, but that's because everything that's positive about this knife I've already covered in my reviews of its predecessors. The ergonomics are really, really good. They're a highlight of the Pyrite. This is a knife that's on the smaller side, but you still get a full 4-finger grip, and it feels like a full-size EDC knife, right? It doesn't feel lacking. The build quality is great. Oh, I guess one thing I could say in the negatives, we saw the free spinning pivot, which I'm not a fan of at all. Fix it, CJRB. But yeah, that's negative with all of them as well. What do I think about this Pyrite? I think this one, again, is aesthetically really, really pleasing. This knife looks awesome. I'm a big, big fan of the way this knife looks. But as far as utility goes, man, I keep kicking my tripod today. I'm sorry about that, guys. As far as utility goes, this is the least utilitarian Pyrite so far. If you're wanting to buy a Pyrite to EDC, I recommend going with one of the other blades. In fact, right now, actually, I recommend going with a Pyrite Light. But this one definitely has a little bit more personality than previous Pyrites, I think. And now CJRB has also released the Tanto Pyrite. That one looks cool, but I still think this Pyrite has the most character, and I really, really like that. I'm honestly surprised that they came out with a Bowie before the Tanto, but I'm glad they did. This is a very Gideon knife. In fact, old Tanto guy, one of my channel members, he said that when I got this knife. He said, wow, it's a perfect Gideon knife. And in a lot of ways, it absolutely is. I'm a sucker for Bowies. I'm a sucker for bolsters. It's got the geology theme in the name. This is a great Gideon knife, and I really, really do appreciate a lot about it. Now, when it comes to my recommendation, again, if you're looking for a Pyrite to use, to EDC, I am not going to recommend you get this one. I'm going to send you to, again, probably the Pyrite Light, but I would send you to the drop point or the Wharncliffe Pyrite before this. However, if you like the looks of this thing, I can 100% recommend it. This is a fantastic knife. CJRB is releasing more premium versions of it that you can get your hands on if that's more your thing. But yeah, very, very fun knife. I'm very glad that it exists. And that's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. Big shout out to my channel members. If you want to be a channel member, there's a button down below. I've been Gideon. I'll see you in the next one. Adios.